Okay, folks, welcome back. The week flew by, literally, a cup of coffee and it was gone. So let's just pick up from where we were last week. Is there anything else you guys would like to say about the vaccine? Then we'll move back to our usual sort of purpose. Would that be okay? Anything?
Yes, I think the only thing I would like to add actually is why I chose to have the vaccine. I've already had my first dose of Pfizer. I'll be honest, and I could have been swinging in either way camp before I listened very carefully to what Estralita had to say. I've got young grandkids, and I desperately want to see them again. And equally, neither do I wish to get COVID. I mean, we actually have had a friend who's had COVID. You don't want to know the end result. So I think on balance, I decided that if I could actually have 70% immunity in the first jab and 95% immunity in the second jab, then actually that was, for me, was a get out of jail card. I think that the mental aspect of being sort of in lockdown or being prevented from seeing people has had a terrible toll. And so it's a personal choice, I agree, but it was a choice made with knowledge, following on from having a long chat with Estralita.
Yeah, you felt informed enough to make a decision.
Yes, to make a reasonable decision for myself.
Get you at peace, absolutely.
Yeah.
Okay, let's move on, folks, and let's get back to original thing I normally do. So we've got a bit about the backstory, and so what we've got is both of you have entered into I'm just going to call it the keto low carb space, yes. And then you've had a journey through it. So can you tell us a little bit about the journey so far, some of the highlights, and then where you've got to, so we kind of follow that pattern over the conversation. And maybe Issy, since you missed out a lot last week.
We all know I can talk a lot, so actually it's much better to have the reasoned explanations of Estralita than some of mine. But I'm very happy to tell you about the journey. In the first few weeks, as I said last week, we had a lot of experiences. The first experience really was having devised a low carb program and actually working out what the net carbs were, so as we were actually always in ketosis. One of the first things I really noticed was actually that I had become used to snacking as a habit. Now, it wasn't because I was hungry. It just so happens that I was actually sort of close to somewhere where I could actually find something or buy something to eat. It wasn't actually because I was hungry. And that became very noticeable for me early on. Now, the keto program that we devised actually had the correct balance of proteins and fats with a few carbs from a green leafy veg. So in actual fact, what I found was that if I did appear to be hungry, but I think it was actually more in my head, if I did appear to be hungry, I just had a quick snack of maybe some nuts or yogurt and maybe a few berries, just to sort of, and the first thing I noticed, apart from the sort of brain fog lifting and feeling so much better, was really interesting. That was the really interesting part, was actually that the food I was eating was satiating and I had absolutely no need to snack. And at that point in time, we were on 3 meals a day, breakfast, lunch, dinner. And that has changed subsequently to maybe a couple of meals a day because I just don't feel as if I need it. But that's where we started, 3 meals a day. And we were allowed to, because of what was going on in my mind, it's time for a snack. No more time for a snack, really. But that's just how I felt. So that's how we started. And interestingly enough, I started losing weight straight away. Yeah. I've lost 6 kilos. It's remained off. I feel better for that. I mean, the waist of my trousers isn't quite so tight. I've lost a lot of belly fat. That's mainly where it's come from.
Yeah, fantastic. I suppose, Estralita, what's been your experience? And you seem a bit younger than the two of us.
And you're right.
Well, I can say that I started feeling old, whatever my age was then. But I think for me, very surprising. After about 3 weeks, it just felt as if the world was brighter in a way, and it felt as if I was sharper. Somebody once said, you know, I felt a little bit more intelligent, if that makes sense.
Yes.
And I mentioned, I can still remember, I mentioned that day to Issy, you know, I think I suffered from brain fog and I never knew it. So that was very important. Then I had a couple of other things as well. It was just specific to me. You know, I used to kind of suffer from reflux, especially after eating bread.
Yeah.
Completely gone. I had very sensitive teeth. But then, you know, I loved sugar or sugary kind of sweet kind of desserts and stuff. That's completely gone. Obviously, I lost weight. I never thought I would get rid of the weight around my waist. You know, it was just sitting there. That's gone. And my mood, although I'm not, you know, I'm not a depressive or anything like that, but my mood is much more positive, and I feel my creativity is also much better. So for me, it was maybe more subtle kind of changes, but I didn't have any, fortunately, any medical conditions that I needed treatment for. I mean, Issy, I think you didn't mention that she came off her blood pressure medication after about 3 months completely. And so, you know, for me, I just never want to go back to what I felt like before, because I needed, because of my sweetness and cravings and so on. I couldn't go out for a long walk and so on if I didn't take something with me to eat on the journey. That's all gone, and it's absolutely great.
And I think, sorry, can I just actually interrupt? I think another thing, because we can always remember things about other people, but I remember Estralita had terrible hay fever before keto, low carb. I mean, terrible, you know, just awful. And it is much improved.
Yeah, I must say I've been on low carb keto for 2 years now, just over 2 years. And last year in the summer season, I had very mild, almost no hay fever, and I really suffered from very severe hay fever. So we'll see what's going to happen this year, but I hope it's going to continue that way.
Fantastic. I mean, I'm about 4.5 years in, nearly 5 years, and all these things you said, the same thing happened to me. That didn't know I had brain fog till it disappeared. The whole thing about. It's interesting you mentioned teeth because one of the guests we've had on here 3 times, he's like our star, Dr. Alvin Dannenberg. I don't know if you know his story, but he was literally in a hospice dying of cancer, and he reversed his way right out of there on low carb and keto, which is an extraordinary story. And he's a proper doctor as well, but he specializes in the mouth. And funnily enough, he not only, you know, we don't get this sensitive, so Sensodyne toothpaste is no longer required. No, it should have been in the first place, but there you go. And what he mentions is we don't need to brush our teeth. And so he's an orthodontist, and he taught us to get off the toothpaste altogether, thank God. So that was another thing that's been very powerful about it. But I think you're right. I think this sudden awareness of actually feel more intelligent, which is a kind of bizarre thing to say. The other bizarre thing is, I'm sure you know, you go into your supermarket and you just don't go near the aisles. Your brain doesn't take you there. And if you go past it because you're on your way for something else, you don't even look at them. But before, you were always buying this stuff, you know?
Well, Jack, and you know, if you go into the supermarket, then you realize that 90% of the floor space is actually occupied by processed food.
Yeah. So let's get back on the journey, folks. So you mentioned that you were very careful about, you know, in creating your own program. So you're very aware of the macros and making them balanced and so on. Do you guys recommend, or did you track a lot? Were you testing a lot?
You mean, sorry, can I just clarify the question? Do you mean tracking our net carbs?
Yeah, were you tracking stuff? Were you measuring things every day? Were you sort of getting tests from time to time? What were you doing with that sort of stuff?
in the beginning, because I actually, I'll be honest with you, in the beginning, because I didn't know what 100 grams looked like of certain products. Sorry, I should. I've been cooking for a while, but you know, it's just a kind of mix and match. You throw everything in. So I was quite rigid in the beginning because I had to, but also it actually taught me what it looked like, because you know, my idea of 100 grams of something could well be 300 grams, and you know, so I just to enable me to understand it to begin with. Yes, we did track. Now we just it's a bit more. We know what it is. So I mean, if there's an extra nut goes in it, it's not really going to affect things that much.
Yeah, but I can say, you know, once we started getting people on our program, you know, we encourage them, if they do have metabolic markers and so on, to send it through to me, and also to have it checked again after maybe a couple of months. And it's absolutely amazing to see how the markers change, you know, how the inflammatory markers, for instance, will come down, how the lipid markers, and they usually quite difficult when they go back to their GPs and their cardiologists, you know, to tell them, oh, your cholesterol and your LDL, your so-called bad cholesterol, is too high. But a lot of the people have actually taken on board, you know, from the science behind it, and on their own accord stopped taking statins, for instance, feeling so much better, didn't realize that a lot of the muscle pains and the forgetfulness and so on were side effects from the medication. So, you know, it's more on an ad hoc basis where we've been able to track some of these medical markers. I think Issy monitored her blood pressure on a daily basis, and that brought, you know, after, as I say, a few months, there was absolutely no need to continue with blood pressure medication.
Fantastic.
Yeah, and the other thing we did was, just as an experiment, actually, is I hooked up to a continuous glucose monitor.
Yeah, we have.
Which was, I mean, it was an experiment.
Yeah.
It was very revealing. I mean, you know, the effect of, you know, high carbs was almost instantaneous. I mean, I felt slightly weird because, you know, I'd been actually on low carb keto for quite a while, but the results were horrific. Estralita might explain some of the results that we had. I left it on for 2 weeks. Just as an experiment. Well,
we had an experiment with the group here back about September. We did a 2-week experiment. There's about 40 of us, and sharing what was going on, and we did that with NutriSense, or whatever they're called, and it was fascinating. You're absolutely right. Even those of us who thought we were fairly well keto and fat adapted would have. I mean, I tend to have a Chinese meal on a Saturday night from a very good restaurant. Everything's cooked from scratch. It's all whole food. There's no MSG. And I just on the taste, I thought I'd have some barbecued spare ribs without any sauce. God, it shot right through the roof, and it was there most of the night.
Yeah,
it's shocking, and people don't realise just something simple like that.
Yeah,
put you in a very dangerous place. But so going back to your program, because you guys start getting personal results, then you think, okay, why don't we help people? And what I love about it is, I keep saying this, you're not that I'm anti anything else, but you're kind of British. You're in Edinburgh of all places. So you're bringing at it from an angle of awareness of people, what they eat in Britain, as opposed to, as I joke about, cilantro or whatever it is that the Americans talk about, when we just want, you know, coriander leaves, and all the other things in between. Tell us a wee bit about the journey from getting personal results, then thinking, listen, we should help people here. Yeah. How did that come about, and tell us about the program?
Well, I think, you know, just because of the great results the two of us achieved, we thought we need to tell people about this. And very early on, I had a visit from two South African friends, very good friends, came over, and my goodness, I mean, the one we were actually at medical school together, but when I saw her, I was shocked. You know, it's the same person after seeing her after so many years, and we just started talking about, you know, the diet and what they need to do, and you know, she was on statins and so on, and they said yes, we'll try it, and that's what they did. And I mean, we were able to monitor their markers, which improved dramatically. So that's how it started. And then, you know, more people, you know, friends from South Africa started. And then we decided, look, you know, we can make this a global program. And yes, we are based here, but you know, real food is real food in all countries. So we were able, you know, when COVID started, to actually take our program online because it's suitable to do that. We've got people in America, South Africa, Australia, and it's not really very difficult to do it that way.
Yeah.
Yeah, and the other thing was that in back when we started, you know, we could actually do sort of face-to-face networking. We were allowed out. Seems a while ago now, but so we you know, we met a lot of people, and you know, when you actually look much better. I mean, I feel about 20 years younger. Now I know I've got white hair, and I know I'm grandmother and everything, and that's fine. That's just a fact. But actually, I feel about 20 years younger, and people I hadn't seen for a while actually said, "My goodness, you look so much better.
Yeah.
What have you done?"
Yeah.
Now that's actually how we did a lot through word of mouth in the beginning here, but we very definitely made our program. It is written in British English, and if I'm allowed to say that, and but other people interpret it in their own countries. But it's been very successful globally for us. So and that was wonderful, because by being able to take it online, that was the whole key to actually the global access.
So this is fantastic. And so the obvious thing is there seems to be hundreds and hundreds of keto and low carb podcasts, blogs, vlogs, and programs, and thank God, lots of books, although you never quite see them advertised in the UK. You never quite see a headline in the newspapers, but you will about veganism. But there you go. So the thing is, how do you, I mean, going back to the program, tell us a little bit more about the actual program, so that we can maybe encourage people to, and why do you think it's different from those hundreds of other ones?
Well, it may or may not be different. As you say, there are so many variations on the theme. And I mean, that's not really where we want to go. We want to present a program where we know it's possible for people to go into ketosis, because that's really when they experience the positive effects of this program, because we believe that the best kind of fuel for the body to run on is actually ketones and not glucose. Yeah. So just shortly about the program is basically to educate people. Now, many people like yourself and many other people can do it on their own. You know, they read a lot and they decide, okay, this is what I'm going to do. But we also find that there are people that say, you know, I'm not quite sure, you know, I would like a little bit more guidance. Or I'm not good in the kitchen. I can't cook the whole day in the kitchen. And, you know, I'm a professional person, and, you know, they used to use processed food and so on. So we decided we'll make a program that teach people how they can make good, quick, nutritious meals. And there's flexibility, you know, whether if they don't want to use dairy, they don't have to, but we include dairy in our program. That way we train them over a period of 3 months on how to do it. We provide a lot of support via Zoom chats or, you know, social media, Facebook and so on, because there are usually a lot of questions when people start. So it's for those people that would like to get more guidance and support.
And I think also the structure is important because this is a learning curve. I mean, you'll know that, Jack. You've been down this journey a long time, which is fantastic. But you know, we find that the structure of our program helps people to develop an understanding. Usually in the first 3 weeks, there's masses of questions, and we love questions, so that's great. But you know, after 12 weeks, people are normally got it. You know, and they can then go on and work what they want. I mean, we've worked with all sorts of people. I recollect one lady, absolutely delightful lady. She says, I don't cook. I went, wow, that's going to be an exciting one. That's what I thought in my head. That's not what I said. I said, well, we can help you.
Yeah.
And we did. And guess what? Actually, now she's actually got our recipe book, and she's actually cooking because she actually enjoys it. And the problem was that she wasn't enjoying her food before, so she saw no reason to cook whatsoever. But she's also taken personal responsibility for her own health. Yeah,
fantastic. Yeah. No, I think again, one of the things that I know people have already mentioned it when you mention it to friends or family, or people approach me because they're ex-clients and they know I'm passionate about it. You know, they go into it thinking it's a diet. That's again not helpful. They think it's about, you know, don't have this food, don't have the other food. They think they're probably not going to enjoy it. They're going to have a smaller plate, got to exercise more and all that usual stuff. And of course, it's nothing like that. So it's tough for people to accept they're going to start eating fat, but I think it's also tough for them to expect to become fat adapted in a couple of days. And that doesn't quite happen, does it? So can you tell us a wee bit about that journey for people, how you support them to have the patience? They might get rid of the fog very quickly. They might lose a few pounds relatively quickly, but there's a bigger journey, isn't there? Could you let them say something about that?
I think there is. Can I actually go back, because we spoke last week about the word diet as well. Actually, it came up in conversation. Yes. The original meaning for diet.
Oh, frozen.
So I think that is helpful to actually just think diet equals way of life, healthy way of life.
Yeah. Okay.
Your question on fat adaptation. Do people get it straight away? No, I didn't. So why should they? No. And I think that this goes on for a few weeks, and it can, in some instances, it can be months. Some people say, they say I'm hungry. And Estralita said, well, why don't we introduce some more fat into your diet? Oh, I can't eat fat, but I was like that. So why shouldn't other people be? So actually, if one has the experience of having felt that oneself, it's actually easier to coach them to go, yes, no, I understand that's how you feel. But I tell you what, if we could just increase a little bit, and then a little bit more. This is a one step at a time principle. You can't load everybody at the front end on day 2.
Yeah, I mean, some of the participants were able to buy ketone, recorder, measure their ketones and so on. We know that you can detect ketones maybe in the urine during the first week, but that disappears. So you have to do a blood test. There are various models available that you can buy and so on. So some people that really like to see that, do that, and it gives them a good indication whether they're in ketosis.
Yeah, fantastic. I mean, one of the things that excites me about what you're doing is again the fact that you know how to express it to Brits, shall we say. Mm-hmm. But I think also we're kind of like baby boomers, and I think one of the challenges once you understand it, I know you've got a passion like I have to share it with the world, because why wouldn't you want everyone not to have brain fog that don't know they've got it? That's one thing, but more importantly, their health. And so what you see very close friends, his family members, even relatives, just the guy next door, wherever they are. And you see people who, baby boomers, kind of generally, who think they're healthy, but we know that this thing in the background, it builds up over many, many, many years. And then when
unknown caller.
the call I need to take. So
Fine,
give me a
fine.
moment, okay?
Yep.
So, guys, yeah, what I was getting at was that we tend to be people who tend to follow me, I think, are in the baby boomer camp or slightly behind it. And
Unknown caller.
okay. Hello.
Do you want to mute, Jack?
So what I was getting at before I was interrupted was the fact that we see family, friends, people of the same age groups thinking they're probably healthy, they've been eating the healthy way, but you can see in their bodies that actually, because of what we know about this stuff, metabolic dysfunction, that it doesn't just happen, overnight, or rather quickly. It takes a long time, but once it starts to get to a tipping point, it can be relatively rapid. And so how do you guys, I mean, I think that's the beauty of your age group doing what you're doing. And I'm sure you deal with all age groups and you're dealing globally, but how do you think we help people who might find it not easy to look at this?
Yes, that's an excellent question, because we see it on a daily basis. And sometimes the people closest to you don't want to hear your message. And you're absolutely right. These nutrition-related diseases take many years to decades to develop. And we know that, for instance, if you look at the data from, when the guidelines came into being, say, beginning of the 80s in the US and also here, you can see 20 years after that, how the type 2 diabetes cases just absolutely, escalated and the prevalence increased. And the same then later for heart disease and dementia and so on. Yeah. So, and this is actually quite well recorded. There's this kind of lag time from diet to diabetes is 20 years, more or less 30 years for heart disease, and then later for, cancer and dementia and so on. So what we decided to do is actually during lockdown is to write a book, but to write a book in a way that explains sometimes very difficult scientific and medical concepts so that the general public can understand it. Fantastic. So it's a book, it's only got 150 pages. It focuses to give a very basic message and explain to people how the diseases work, and that it takes time. Children or young people in their 20s, they may not know it, but they may be insulin resistant already on the way to diabetes. Yep. But they don't realize it because they feel good, yep. And they can carry on. But this is a relentless, slow process in the background. And maybe just to tell you something, I was on a Zoom call one day with somebody that's on our program, and she said, just wait a minute, I just want to ask my husband to join because he may be interested. Yeah. Well, I could see when he came on the call that he was not interested at all. But I asked the question, I said, can you tell me, are you a healthy person, or, what's your background? And he said, yeah, I'm completely healthy, no problem at all. So I thought, that's strange, because that's not what his wife had in mind. So I said, are you on any medication perhaps? He said, yes, I'm on 7 different medications. I said, oh, okay, and what are they for? So he was on medication for diabetes, for heart disease, statins, name it. Yeah. But this guy actually believed that he was healthy. Yeah. So there's a big misunderstanding of, that people don't realize, first of all, that they may think they're healthy, but they're very far from it.
And sadly, we also equate health with body shape. And we know about the skinny on the outside, fat on the inside dynamic. People find that very hard to consider, don't they?
Yes.
Have you come across many of those, what do they call them, tofies or whatever?
Tofi. Yeah, this person that I was talking about, he was actually a tofi because,
Oh, was he?
you
Wow.
know, yeah, he likes to ride his bike and so on.
Yeah.
So to him, you know, he's a healthy person.
Yeah, I mean, I think for me, being the age I am and stuff, and with grandchildren and so on, the thing is, you do look at friends, our age group and family, and you think, oh my God, you know, there's going to come a moment when that tipping point happens. But then you've got the other thing about being concerned about your grandchildren and being concerned about even my kids, you know, and doing the best to expose them to this. But you know, they're always like, oh, here, dad again, and all these mad things. And so I do worry about youngsters, you know, and obviously with the vegan movement, you know, you go into the supermarket, you look at the so-called vegan food.
Yeah.
Oh my God, it's full of stuff that we know now we can't possibly eat long term.
Exactly.
So the book, tell us about the book. What's it called? How do people get it?
Yeah, so the book is called Eat Well or Die Slowly. and the Die Slowly is really about exactly what we've spoken about now, that people don't realize it, but they are actually slowly dying of one of these metabolic diseases, whatever it may be. And we will never know, is it going to be diabetes, dementia, heart disease? We don't know. So it's available on Amazon. And then to follow that, we've also done a cookbook. And the name of the cookbook is Eat Your Way to Health, Recipes for Success.
Yeah.
And it's about 80 recipes. So it's quite a wide variety of different recipes to help people along.
And one of the podcasts I was listening to a couple of weeks ago now was a doctor out in, a cardiologist, in fact, out in Israel. She was born in Argentina, as I remember it. She did all her training in America, the big universities. Very talented lady. And she said, you know, now that the same journey we've all been on, she's, you know, as a doctor on it now, and the cardiologist working with patients, she made the point that, you know, we don't have to die sick. We can just die of old age. And going back to the point, the people who are in this cohort of baby boomers, you know, if you're on medication and so on, then what's the projection? And what we do know is that if we come on this, if we start following your program, given other research we're aware of and other contributors, within days, certainly a week, 8 days, 10 days, you start to massively improve your metabolic health. Can you see a bit about that to inspire people who still might be thinking about it but haven't made the transition towards having a go?
Absolutely. There's a lot that people, even if they're quite far down the metabolic disease journey, they can stop, they can revert or reverse a lot of it. Some people, like some diabetics, can come off completely from their diabetic medication. So a lot is possible, even for people with dementia. I mean, there's some very interesting data available of people with dementia just changing bits of their diet, increasing fat, and being able to perform much better. Memory functions, cognitive functions improving, and so on. So I think one should never say it's too late. No. One can always improve on whatever stage people are in with their metabolic health, can always improve. And, you know, if you catch it in time, you can even get rid of medication. I mean, that is definitely a possibility.
I mean, one of the things that guys, I mean, you're both women, so you might be able to help me here, but you know, one of the things I find for guys it's quite helpful is to stand up straight, shuffle up towards a door or a wall till your toes actually touch the wall. And the next thing that should be touching the wall is your nose. Anything else means you need to get on this lifestyle. Is there anything that you're aware of as women that women can maybe think about and go, oh, that might be an indicator? Is there anything like that?
I think for myself, I can probably answer that question. Is actually, I mistakenly thought actually I was quite thin,
Yeah.
and I I mean, I can tell the story against myself. It's okay. I thought I was quite thin, but I had what I could best describe as quite a chubby tummy, and and I don't have very big feet either. So I had quite a chubby tummy. I mean, it was a bit like Humpty Dumpty, really.
Yes.
So I think that's a great marker, is that sort of waist swelling, one might describe it as. And I think that you can see that quite readily. I appreciate what you're saying. Our anatomy is slightly different, so your example may not work quite so well. But, but I think if one actually just looks down, I mean, I now look down, and I mean my tummy is fairly flat, whereas before it was what I might best describe as rotund.
Yeah, waist measurement is a great indicator for people to get an idea. They may not be as healthy as they think.
Yes. I mean, the other one, of course, is the mistake of getting on the scales every morning. Any advice about that, particularly for women,
Yes, I think in the beginning it's helpful. I mean, people actually hate jumping on the scales, even me, but I think we need to know what the measurement is to begin with. We need to know what we're aiming for.
Yeah.
So what we encourage people to do is actually, yes, please get on the scales. You don't necessarily have to tell us what the kilos are or pounds, but you need to measure it for yourself, because you're actually wanting to measure your loss.
Yes.
It's not necessarily what you were, it's your loss. So I think that's important. Equally now, I haven't weighed myself probably for over 6 months.
Yeah.
But I'd like to just hand over to Estralita. I'm sure that she's got something to add to that.
I think you're absolutely right. Our weight can really vary from day to day.
Yeah.
So one shouldn't be too disappointed if you measure your weight every day, that it's not going in a fashion of a downwards fashion. So I think we don't, especially in the beginning, advise people to record their weight once a week. Small variations will occur, and also with women, with their menstrual cycles and so on, there may be, more water retention and so on. So I think one needs to have a bit of a longer term vision here. And I will certainly not advise people to weigh themselves every single day.
No. And of course, the other thing is, as we lose weight, again, a lot of the people who inspire us don't come into it to lose weight. They come in because of their health. But the loss of weight is a nice byproduct. But those who do want to lose weight, it's also a good program. But the thing, of course, is once you do lose the weight, and once you've got the clarity of mind, you might start exercising more, just naturally.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
You might walk a bit further, you might start running, you might get on a bicycle, whatever it is. And then, of course, you start putting muscle on.
Yeah.
And so that's where the weight thing isn't always a good marker, is it? I suppose further down. And so do you also, in your program, recommend exercise? For example, are you recommending intermittent fasting? What sort of stuff around that do you introduce, and when?
Yeah, so basically, I mean, we're not a fitness program, but exercise is important, because when you exercise, your muscles get more sensitive to the effects of insulin and so on. So it's a good thing. What we try to tell people is that you're not going to exercise away a bad diet. So 90% of what your body looks like is based on what you eat, and you can improve all of that with exercise. So yes, we are encouraging people to do exercise, but we're not focusing primarily on that.
And maybe I'll take the intermittent fasting. We have people who are on our program who actually who are what they describe as experienced fasters, perhaps fasting for 5 days. We ask people to stop doing that straight away with our program. We need to actually educate on the food and the nutrition aspect first. I didn't actually understand how I would possibly be able to do intermittent fasting. I'll tell you in a minute what I do, because I was constantly always hungry. Every 2 hours, I seemed to, whether it was my mind or whether it was actually my body, I had no idea. However, what I found was actually by having the correct balance of, leafy veg, protein, and fats, was actually that I could well intermittent fast. So now for myself, I eat within an 8-hour window of 24 hours, and I don't eat in the other 16. And I didn't develop that straight away. I just find that works for me. I only need 2 meals a day. I've got plenty of energy for 2 meals a day with 2 meals. I can't actually now take the capacity of 3. Interesting.
No, I'm the same, and I think many people find that. I mean, when we hear about fasting, we go, "No, surely this sounds like a diet again."
Absolutely, it's a negative connotation, isn't it?
Exactly. But then it just naturally falls into place, doesn't it? Your body starts to adapt. You're running on ketones. You don't feel as hungry. It's just the way it is, isn't it? And then you have for breakfast, or just wait till lunchtime. And the other thing I've done, which is amazing, is I tend to have something to eat round about midday, and then we want to get our evening meal over by 5, and then that's it. And okay, I might have a coffee with some cream, but
Yes, absolutely. We're much the same. I think also we've the age group that we are, with a few years less for Estralita, is that we were all brought up to, you must have your breakfast. Start the day with breakfast. Well, actually, I didn't like starting the day with breakfast, and I don't start the day with breakfast. We tend to eat a bit like you. We actually have our main meal sort of somewhere midday, 1-ish or something, and then we'll have a bit of a snack later on, probably before 5. Yes, I do drink coffee with cream in the morning. I only drink water or tea after that. And, that sustains me. Before, I used to be, we've got an expression, hangry, which is hungry and angry.
Yeah, that's right. Yeah.
Not a very pleasant sight, I can tell you, for me.
So moving, coming round a little bit, Issy, you're South African. Presumably, well, I don't know, but presumably Professor Tim Noakes had an impact on you. Were you aware of that whole dynamic happening in your country, or?
No, that actually happened after I left South Africa, so I wasn't aware of that.
Okay.
But we also cover that very shortly in our book, because it's not just Tim Noakes that was kind of persecuted. We have people like Gary Fetke in Australia and so on. So it's fairly common for people that don't adhere to the general belief to fall out with the traditional dietary and nutrition and medical society. But no, I think Tim Noakes is an excellent scientist, a very good rated scientist in South Africa. I mean, he's got an amazing story, and how his own journey and how he discovered the truth about nutrition after having written books about the opposite side, which is it's a fascinating story. And I think he's done so great with his nutrition network and bringing it to the attention of so many people. And I think in South Africa, because of him, a lot of people are actually aware of this way of eating and lifestyle, much more, I think, in general than what I experience here in the UK.
Yeah. I mean, we've been very blessed to have Tim Noakes on here, and Belinda and Gary. We've been very, very fortunate, and all the other giants. We're very, very, very lucky. And now we've got you two, which is exciting as well.
We're in esteemed company.
yes, absolutely. And so where are you heading now, do you think? So you've done the main book, you've had a recipe book. Have you got them there to hold them up so people can actually see them?
So this is the first one explaining the background.
Yeah.
And that's the second one, Eat Your Way to Health, which is the recipe book.
They look fantastic, and that's cool. Can you get a Kindle version of them?
Yeah, they're both available on Kindle. They're both available on Amazon.
I'm going to download them. I haven't got around to it yet because it's been massively busy. So moving on, what do you think you're going to do next? Do you think you've done enough with having 2 books, and you've got your program, and you're busy now globally? Thank God. Where do you see it heading? And wherever you're heading, how can we help you?
Well, what a lovely suggestion. I mean, we have very much appreciated your interview, and we just love collaborating with people and educating. So it's a great joy actually to speak to you, Jack.
Yeah.
Currently, having said I'd never write another book again, so somehow or other I seem to have been coerced into, although it's actually all of my own making, writing a vegetarian and pescatarian recipe book. So I personally am in the throes of that just now. It's great fun. It's been really informative, and I wasn't actually, when it started the journey of sort of, we're taking foods from worldwide basis, whether it's Mediterranean, Cambodia, China, wherever, to give a massive variety. I wasn't actually aware that actually by following perhaps a vegetarian principle, it was actually going to be more challenging to get us into a keto program. It was interesting when you talked before about your Chinese meal, because I'm finding that they in particular actually are quite high in carbs. So that's one of the things. I promise you, I don't think we'll be writing another book for a while after that. So that's one thing. And the other, I'll let Estralita speak in just a second, is actually because we've actually gone online and we're global. That's really where we're aiming for. Yes, we'd love being here. We'd love to educate people here. I think the keto programs are more common in, well, Banting obviously in South Africa, keto in Australia, keto in USA. They're more prevalent in those markets. So we intend to expand in those markets as well as here.
Yeah, and I think we have exciting opportunities to also collaborate with other people in this area, in other markets like Australia and so on. So we're exploring that. And in general, just, how can we join groups and so on, and make presentations to spread the message further afield.
Yes, I mean, currently we are working on something in Australia. I mean, somebody's just ordered 50 of our books for their own program as an information book for the layperson, and we actively are looking for collaboration, as Rita said, collaboration opportunities on a worldwide basis, but also here. Keto's not so well known here.
No, I think this is it. I mean, just for the avoidance of doubt, people listening, giving you your comment, Issy, and I'm grateful for it. Although I do every Saturday night a Chinese takeaway, it's not Chinese food as people.
No, I wasn't.
Rice. I don't have any sweetening things.
No, I was. I'm sorry. I didn't mean to infer that if I did.
No, I know you didn't, but it's just so that others don't think, oh yeah, he eats out, every Saturday night on the old stuff. I don't. But that's good. So you've introduced something which I think is important. We are a wide church. We're kind of a wide church that follows this thing, and we're a wide church in the keto movement or the low carb movement. Although clearly the vegans, whatever you want to call themselves, can do it. Clearly they can, but it's a big different kind of journey for them. There's a lot of supplementation, and obviously you've discovered in researching vegetarian versions that it needs a little bit of attention beyond the normal. So I take it, do you guys still enjoy eating meat? Are you towards the carnivore side? Are you more in the middle? Are you kind of, what people like to call the Mediterranean approach or diet? Where do you find yourself in your own eating patterns?
Okay, can I go first on that? Firstly, if I could just actually touch on vegan, and totally respect if people wish to have that as their diet. On researching how we could actually make that low carb, I'm afraid we didn't actually come up with any solution. So that's just one aspect. Myself personally, I eat meat, fish, dairy, eggs, everything. It's fairly balanced. If I was to be asked my preference, I think probably I prefer fish to meat, but we've got very good sources. We shop local from pasture fed, obviously in the case of meat, and a good quality fishmonger. So, but Estralita's got, her varieties are slightly different, but.
Yeah, I mean, I love animal protein, whether it's meat, fish, dairy, all of those products. I think it's absolutely great. I think it's the best kind of food for us to eat. And I want to echo what Issy saying about, doing research for vegan and vegetarian meals. Very challenging. I don't believe that true vegans can really go into ketosis. We're still researching that. The problem they also have is the highly processed food. So it is much, much more challenging and dietary deficient kind of diet. So no, very happy with eating animal protein and fat.
Yeah, I mean, one of the highly controversial guys in the world at the moment is Dr. Mercola. He shouldn't be, because he's been doing all he can to help us with longevity and healthy lifespan for God knows how long. And he interviewed someone recently who has written a book about being a vegan and transforming back, and actually researching vegan completely, all the research that apparently supports it. I mean, the interview with her was fascinating. And I think you're right. I think to some extent, God help them. Now, everybody understands the animal husbandry side of it, killing an animal. Who wants to do that? Nobody. But nevertheless, as we all know, they're killing endless animals just to have monocultures of wheat. So it's kind of bizarre. But anyway, but good luck to them. Is there anything else that you guys would like to cover in the few moments we've got left? I mean, is there anything you feel you would like to let us hear about or inspire us with?
Yeah, I think just the last thought you had there, Jack, about the devastating environmental impact that industrial farming brought along, with monocrops and so on, and pesticides and fertilizers, actually destroys the soil, the very essence of life, because, it is absolutely killing all the organisms in the soil, as well as other species that depend on that, So the thing that many people that against eating animals think, oh, I don't want to kill an animal, but don't realize that their lifestyle has led to the eradication of thousands of species,
yes,
and destroying environment. So that's another topic. But actually, the best kind of, if we're talking about carbon sequestering and so on, the best kind of farming is the traditional farming, where you do have animals fertilizing and crop rotations and cover crops and so on. So it's a completely different subject, but and there is again another aspect of the misinformation that's fueling people to adopt very restrictive diets, which is not natural for human beings.
I mean, it's a great comfort for those of us who, are under pressure from the vegetarian vegan movement. And right, look, I understand the reasoning, but the science is very dodgy. And then they put this guilt on us for having, grass-fed, steaks. It's just absolutely ridiculous when it comes to the longevity of our planet.
Exactly.
The remainder of species. But anyway, going back to, is there anything else you think you would like to throw in that might inspire us, or you think might be helpful for anyone?
I'll be honest with you, we've covered a lot. I right now, I can't actually think of anything. Probably in 5 minutes when we've finished, I will.
I think the last thing I'd like to say, Jack, is people should educate themselves, because they have it in their hands to do something for themselves. Yeah. If they don't want to be sick and taking a lot of medication as they get older, my message to them is you can do something for yourself.
Just actually, as you have done, Jack, you've actually educated yourself on the very subject that we've been talking about, that's, is dearest to all of our hearts.
Yeah. I mean, one of the things I wanted to pick up earlier on, and it went out of my mind because we get this disturbed a couple of times, or interrupted rather. Given that you've got a program that's working, which is fantastic, and it's now got longevity itself and a pedigree, do you find that your clients are working in tandem with their doctors easily enough, or does that begin to be a dynamic you've got to coach them through? How does that go?
Well, I think it's tricky, and it depends very much on the person. You know, because some people, as I mentioned, don't want to stand up, you know, for
Yeah.
lack of a better word, to their doctors, and maybe if they're not so sure about the science behind it. So it could be a personality thing. But I think, you know, if they have the knowledge, and that's also why, you know, I wrote the book, because it's something that they can actually give to their GPs and say, why don't you read it? I'm not saying all of the GPs will be interested to read it, but, you know, that way to give them a tool to help them.
Yeah.
So once again, I think it's a process, and not everybody is strong enough to make that decision, but a lot of people are.
Yeah, of course. And I find that I've had to move on from a doctor who just wasn't willing to.
Exactly.
And yeah, I'm very fortunate. I've got a doctor now who, I remember I wanted to inhale, for want of a better word, domestos. It wasn't domestos, but and he really, it took about 6 months to source the stuff from me. I'd got the device for, you know, inhaling it from Germany, and he worked with me with that. I mean, you know, he was fantastic, and this was because of my lungs. And I always going down the, but I've had others who literally, I walked out their office and said, I'm never coming back.
Exactly.
No, I understand that completely. I mean, when I had my problems with my heart, and I had to go back to the doctor and just to, you know, for a checkup and things like this, and they said, oh, you seem much better. And you know, I said yes. I said I've been following a lifestyle program. Now, I swear to God that actually the words went straight over her head. Her head didn't move. Her facial expression didn't flinch, and she turned around and said, "That's interesting." And with that, I said, "Good morning." You know, you know, just not interested in listening at all. And I hadn't been in there for 10 minutes, so I was shocked, actually, shocked.
Yeah. And so the obvious question would be, if anyone watching or listening, however they can't get this, are you open for business in terms of people getting in touch with you and having consultations and all of that?
Yeah, absolutely.
Yes, absolutely. I mean, if people want to get in touch, we do a free 15-minute chat just to sort of talk through people's issues, because you know, you don't necessarily want to buy something if you don't actually know whether it's actually going to fit you.
No.
So people can contact us, Jack, on through our website. It's called Wellness EQ, just EQ at the end.net, and they can contact us that way. So yeah, I think that's probably the easiest.
Yes, I mean, we can send you our emails where they can actually also just write something if they find that easier, together with a contact telephone number. We welcome everybody, and you know, what we have, we hope is a fit, but people need to discuss that to see how it works for them individually.
Sounds like you have. I mean, just to finish up then, are there any sort of anecdotes that you can share with just like really wowed you personally because you intervened, you're working with someone and they got this result? Is there anything like that that can just leave us inspired?
Wow, I should have thought of that before. We've had so many, I think. One that springs to mind, a lady in her mid 40s, maybe mid 40s plus, had a very severe brain injury, which had resulted in a long rehabilitation, which had resulted in many different aspects. When she started the program, she didn't realize actually she had brain fog, and neither did she realize actually that her brain wasn't working too well. She'd actually had to teach herself to speak again. So, but she didn't realize that her brain wasn't functioning intelligently. The difference in her health now, she loves the program. She sticks to it solidly. Yeah. The difference in her performance overall, I mean, she exercises, but that's not the performance I'm talking about. Her brain performance is like night and day. The difference is like night and day. So I think her journey has been incredibly inspiring to both of us.
That's a great story. Estralita, anything from your point of view, is that with the doctor head on for a moment that you've observed that's exciting?
Yeah, I mean, for me, just because, you know, I'm used to looking at laboratory tests and results and so on, just to see after, you know, 1, 2, 3 months time period, the difference in the laboratory results, because that's like hard facts, you know, it doesn't lie. That's absolutely amazing. So, yeah, I mean, there are so many of those, but I think for me personally, just because of my background.
Yeah, amazing. I mean, just a final comment. I find that people in the movement, and I've been blessed to interview many. The thing is that most of us are in this for health. There are a few for weight loss. I get that. The people who tend to drive it forward are basically for the health. And it's almost like we're so open-minded about making sure we maintain our health that if something better came along, we would gladly move to it. It's not like we're stuck rigidly to some kind of, you know, religion here, are we? So I'm assuming that's the same for you two guys as well.
Well, we're always researching, always researching. Currently, there's nothing better.
No, exactly.
I'll be surprised, but yes, we need to stay open-minded.
No, we are open-minded. So, but with Estralita's research background, trust me, if there's something out there that's better, she'll find it.
And that let's finish with that. I mean, I think the mix that you two have got is just absolutely fantastic. And I'm sure everyone's been inspired over the 2 weeks. I'm sure they'll want to buy books, and hopefully you'll maybe get the odd client in the near future. So can I wish you continued success, massive growth globally. And thanks again for giving us so much of your time. It's much appreciated.
You're welcome. Thank you for the super chat. Thanks.
Yeah, thank you so much, Jack. Thank you.
Yes, thank you. Bye-bye.
Bye. Bye.